Welcome to Music Theory Fluency. What does it mean to be fluent? I mean, today we're going to come to an understanding and not just try to memorize something. To come to an understanding, we want to create a web of intersecting points of knowledge. So today, as we learn about the circle of fifths, we're not going to learn it just one way, but we're going to learn it in 3 different ways. While this isn't every way to learn the circle of fifths, it is enough to start creating this web of knowledge to support it without going on too long and getting too repetitive. Today we're going to be going over not only the definition, but how the circle of fifths impacts major scales and how we work through our key signatures and how this relates to key signatures.
Let's start with the definition of our circle of fifths. The circle of fifths is a pattern where when we move by ascending fifths up the piano, we find a lot of the natural order to our tonal music and a lot of relationships that connect the notes together. And so, let's first start by reviewing the perfect fifth. From what we learned in our interval quality video, a perfect fifth is from the first note of a major scale to its fifth note. In the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G. In a G major scale, G, A, B, C, D. But in a D major scale, D, E, F sharp, G, A. Now if we're still working on memorizing all of our major scales and really understanding them, we can also think about our perfect fifth as 7 half steps. So when I take a note like E, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I get that hollow ringing sound of a perfect fifth with that perfect quality. But now when I go from B to F, if I don't count it out first, I'll hear this. That dissonant rub is because this is not a perfect fifth. Starting on my B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 1 half step too small and would be a diminished fifth with a dissonant quality. So I need 1 more half step to my F sharp for a perfect fifth. When we use our circle of fifths, how all 12 notes in the octave are represented, starting with our C. C is 1, G is 2, D 3, A 4, E is 5, B is 6, F sharp is 7, our C sharp is 8, but can also be called a D flat. Our A flat is 9, E flat 10, B flat 11, F 12, and just in time, this is not the 13th, but we are back to our original note C at the top of the piano. Now, we'll go on and see how the circle of fifths interacts with our music and see where notes that are a fifth apart can make sounds that are very close together.
Let's now take a look at how our circle of fifths interacts with building our major scales. And so we'll start off with our C major scale. As we know, this is the scale that uses all the white natural notes. And that is definitely a major scale. Now, using our circle of fifths, I would go up to the perfect fifth of the scale over here, G, and now we can start working on building a G major scale. And there's one note that definitely sounded wrong in there. Ew, we don't like this F natural over here. If I was to move this down to an F flat, it would be enharmonic with the E, and we know that major scales don't have any repeated sounding notes. So my better bet is to try the F sharp. And there we are left with our major scale, our G major scale, that uses everything natural except for an F sharp. So now we go on to the perfect fifth, the D, going to our D major scale next here. Definitely too dark. Well, notice in these first three notes here, that note doesn't sound quite right. And once again, we're left with the same problem of if I would use an F flat, it would repeat the sound of the E natural. So I'm better off trying the F sharp. And once again, that seventh tone doesn't sound right, and I'm left with the same idea. If I was to try C flat here, I would get a note enharmonic with B, so I'm better off trying the C sharp. And now we notice the F sharp from earlier stayed into the next scale, and once again, the new sharp, the C sharp, was in the seventh position. So let's see if we can carry that idea into our A major scale. We want to keep the F sharp, we want to keep the C sharp, and we want to add a G sharp on the seventh tone. Oh, well, that just kind of works. And so now we go down to here, we go into our fifth tone, the E. So now we're in our E major scale. We make sure to add our F sharp, our C sharp, our G sharp, and now we go to our seventh note, we have the D sharp. There started to be an easy pattern here. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp. We go into our seventh tone here. We raise this half to our A sharp. And once again, we get a nice major scale. Now, over here, we go to our fifth tone, the F sharp. And so, now over here, even though I have an F written, I know I'm going to be using the F sharp scale instead. And so, I should double check my scale for Fs, and there is now also an F sharp at the end. I then have my C sharp, my G sharp, my D sharp, my A sharp, and we go down here, and we go to our seventh tone, and we also would like an E sharp. And this is a case where you would actually be using an E sharp rather than calling this note an F, because we still need to have the letter names correct. F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. And now it's just everything is sharp except for the B natural. Wait, I'm up to 6 sharps, and I only use 7 notes. So over here, for my next scale, I should be able to raise everything a half step, and it is my C sharp major scale. Which does make sense. If my C major scale at the top of the page was everything natural, it would make sense that a C sharp major scale would be everything sharp. Now let's go around the other side. So we have only really covered half of our scales so far. Now we start back at C major once again, everything natural. We're going to go around the circle of fifths the other direction. Now C is going to become the fifth note of a scale, and this scale, stepping down, C, B, A, G, F, our C is the fifth note of an F scale. There's a note that doesn't sound correct there. So I might try and guess that, oh, well, maybe it's the seventh tone. Ooh, that just kind of got worse. Let's make sure I'm actually listening and not just guessing. Ooh, this is actually the first note that doesn't sound very good. If I was to try a B sharp, that is enharmonic with the C, and we don't want that. So I should go the other direction, instead using a flat here on this fourth note. Oh, and so now we get our F major scale with just this one note being changed, just the B flat, everything else natural. And so now we go down here and we can take the note that our scale would start on. So we go from our F down to our B, a fifth below. And so, from what I learned before, I should be able to go to this fourth note and move it down by a half step. And I should now get my B major scale. Ooh, and that didn't sound good at all. Because I need to keep in track of the fact that my B flat that I had before is now the first and last note of a B flat major scale. As this is not just a B scale, this is a B flat scale. Which shows us that this actually gives us a shortcut. Rather than having to figure out B flat is the fifth note of what scale, our newest flat becomes the first note of our next scale. So next we're going to the E flat. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my E flats. And then I need to keep my B flat from earlier. Now we go here to our fourth tone and we lower it by a half step. And moving that A down to A flat fixed our E flat major scale. Now, since A flat is our newest flat, we'll make sure to start our next scale on an A flat. We make sure we've got our B flat, our E flat, A flats, one over here, and now our fourth note, A, B, C, D, we'll add a D flat as well. Now, that D flat was the newest flat, so we go to our D flat major scale. Making sure we have our B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and now D, E, F, G, our new flat on the fourth tone, our G flat. We added the G flat, we go to a G flat scale. Making sure to add our B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and our new flat over here on the middle C, a C flat. This would be a scenario where we would call this note a C flat rather than a B natural. And finally, we're now going to our C flat major scale, which we learned earlier is it only makes sense if a C major scale is everything natural, then a C flat scale would be everything flat. But now we notice this sheet over here has a lot of sharps and flats on the page. So there's gotta be a better way of writing music. And luckily, there is. Let's talk about key signatures. The things that tell us what sharps and flats are in our piece, but also will give us a lot more information about what chords and what notes phrases should want to be ending on. Our C major has everything natural. That's where when we go into key signatures, this is not no key signature, but instead the key signature of C major. Now, when we look at all these different key signature icons, it can look intimidating. But something people might have started to pick up on is that when we add our sharps and flats, I was going in the same order every single time. Let's actually go into our flat scales first. And there's actually a trick that we can use to remember our order of flats. We simply spell the word bead, and then the last three letters are GCF. A lot of us might remember our middle school math classes talking about our greatest common factor, and it uses the same acronym. So I have my bead, GCF, BEAD, GCF. And so my C major scale has no sharps or flats. My F major only has one flat, B. My B flat major, BE. We notice the flat signs are going away from the scale, and now over here, this is telling us every B and every E are flat, not just on these locations, but even though the B flat is up here, every B is now a B flat. Now we go to 3, BEA. All the flat signs go away. Now we go to 4, our bead, BEAD. Notice once again, all the flat signs go away. We go to 5, BEADG. 6, BEADGC. And finally, all 7 flats, BEADGCF. As we go back over here, we take our order of sharps. And there might be some sentences that people have learned throughout their childhood, but to me, the easiest way to remember the order of sharps is we can simply take the order of flats backward. So I have my key of C major that has no sharps or flats. I then go to my key of G major, and I go backwards to this order, and I have my F sharp. 2 sharps, I have my F sharp C sharp. 3 sharps, I have my F sharp C sharp G sharp. 4 sharps, F C G D. 5, F C G D A. My 6, F C G D A E. And finally, I have all 7 sharps. And now, when we look at this graphic on our circle of fifths, we'll notice 3 of the notes at the bottom given a harmonic name for 2 different notes. And that is actually our bottom scales here, the bottom 3, as a B major scale with 5 sharps is enharmonic to our C flat major scale with 7 flats. Our F sharp major scale is enharmonic to our G flat major scale, each of them with 6 sharps for F major and 6 flats for G flat major. And finally, our C sharp major scale with 7 sharps is enharmonic with D flat major with 5 flats. And so this is why we will more often see a D flat major key signature, but there are times where we can be in the key of C sharp major, whether it's through a key signature or accidentals being added to our music that make us think in the key of C sharp major. If you'd want to get a copy of this PDF with all these scales that we've been working on today, that download is available in the description. So now that we start to understand how the circle of fifths works, let's talk about how we would use this in our day-to-day practice. If I was going to learn a piece in the key of G major, not only would I want to warm up and prepare my G major scales, arpeggios, but often a larger work will borrow from 2 neighboring key signatures. So in the key of G major, with 1 less sharp, I would be borrowing from the key of C major, and with 1 more sharp, I'd be borrowing from the key of D major. A better way to prepare myself to practice and sight read this piece would be to use a warm-up that incorporates C major, G major, and D major patterns that I'm familiar with. That way, as I sight read and learn the material, I'm going to be more familiar with scale patterns, and I'm going to be more familiar with chord patterns in the music, leading me to better understand, learn the music, and eventually memorize the material. Happy practicing.